I missed the morning bus by exactly 3 minutes, long enough to see my husband, outside the city's fanciest hotel, slip a room key to my best friend of 15 years. Naomi smiled that "we know" smile. Aaron Miller scanned the street like an amateur criminal. They thought I was stuck on the 347 Express. They didn't know I was across the street. Phone in hand, calling the divorce lawyer saved in my favorites. My name is Emma Adams. I'm 34 years old, and my business cards claim I'm the Senior Operations Manager for Northbridge Benefit Solutions. This is a polite way of saying I'm the one who makes sure the underwriters in Riverton, Ohio, remember to submit their timesheets and that the perpetually broken coffee machine on floor 3 isn't brewing lukewarm poison. I am, at my core, an HR person. I fix logistical problems. I handle compliance. I am organized. I am efficient. And I am, almost obsessively, on time. This morning, I was not. This morning was a symphony of small, domestic failures. The alarm I'd set for 6 a.m. apparently decided to take a personal day. The quick, dry nail polish I'd applied last night had imprinted a perfect linen pattern onto 2 fingers. The last of the decent coffee was gone, leaving only a dark, bitter sludge that tasted like regret. I was sprinting, in heels that were a profound tactical error, toward the stop for the 347 Crosstown Express. I had an 8 a.m. budget review, a meeting I suspected would be both pointless and mandatory. I'd skipped breakfast, thrown my damp hair into a knot that screamed, "I've made poor choices," and power-walked 4 blocks in the damp, unforgiving Ohio spring air. I reached the corner of Elm and 3rd just in time to see the bus pull away. The accordion-like back end disappeared around the corner, its diesel fumes washing over me like a final greasy insult. I checked my phone, 7:57 a.m. I was right on time to be exactly 3 minutes late. A moment later, the phone buzzed in my hand. A new email from the junior analyst who had scheduled the meeting. Subject RE canceled, budget review. Apparently, the cancellation notice he'd sent at 10 p.m. last night had gone to every department head except, it seemed, the ones actually required to attend. The meeting was off. The sprint was for nothing. The heels were a betrayal. I stood on the sidewalk, my leather briefcase cutting into my palm. A short, sharp laugh escaped my throat. It wasn't amusement. It was the sound of a spring coiling too tight. Destiny, fate, whatever you want to call the universe, find a very specific way to give you the middle finger before 9 in the morning. I should have called a rideshare. Any sane person would have. But the stubborn, self-reliant, Midwest pride that runs deep in my veins refused. It was only 2 miles to the house. It was a nice day, if you considered gray, windy, and 5 degrees colder than it should be. Nice. I'd walk. This, it turned out, was the second tactical error of the morning. The early April wind in Riverton doesn't whisper. It interrogates. It found every gap in my trench coat. And the heels. My God. The heels. They were a power move I'd bought for a presentation last year, and they were now systematically trying to murder my feet. Click, clack, click, clack on the pavement. A 4-beat rhythm of pure, unadulterated regret. My shortcut home wasn't really a shortcut. It took me past the riverfront, through the newly gentrified hotel district. This is where the big tech startups and pharma companies put their executives when they fly in. A sterile landscape of glass facades and expensive valet parking. As I turned the corner onto Crown Plaza, grimacing as I shifted my briefcase, I saw the familiar, obnoxious brass logo of the Riverside Crown Hotel. We'd used them for a Northbridge Leadership Summit last year. The canapes were stale, and the audiovisual setup was a joke. And that's when the world stopped. The click-clack of my heels ceased. The wind faded. My feet, which moments ago had been staging a full-scale rebellion, went completely, blissfully numb, because they were there, under the massive green awning, standing just a little too close for a 9 a.m. conversation. My husband, Aaron Miller, 36 years old, tall, and still wearing that faded navy blue high school basketball jacket like it was a core part of his identity and not a piece of cloth that should have been retired a decade ago, and with him, Naomi Price. My Naomi. My best friend since we were paired as random. Terrified roommates our freshman year of college. The maid of honor at my wedding. The godmother to my non-existent children. They weren't just talking. I stopped, frozen on the opposite curb. Aaron was doing that thing he does when he's nervous. That quick, bird-like scan of the street. He looked like a teenager trying to buy beer with a fake ID. He said something short, and Naomi laughed. It wasn't her real laugh. The big, barking one that made me laugh. It was her high, breathy, intimate laugh. The one I'd heard her use on charming waiters. Then, I saw his hand move. He reached into the pocket of his jeans, and his hand emerged holding a small, white, plastic rectangle. A room key card. He didn't just hand it to her. He slipped it to her. His fingers brushed hers. It was practiced. It was smooth. It was a transaction. Naomi took it. Her smile changed, shifting from bright to private, a look I knew I was never meant to see. She gave his shoulder a little shove, a playful, "we're so naughty" push that made my stomach turn to ice. They shared one last internal joke, and Naomi, tucking the key card into the pocket of her expensive-looking wool coat, turned toward the hotel's revolving doors, and Aaron, my husband, he turned, too. Maybe to watch her walk away. He turned, looked up, and his eyes, his clear, blue, perpetually earnest eyes, locked directly with mine. I have seen people in my office receive news that their position has been eliminated. I have seen them react with shock, with tears, with rage, but I have never, in my 34 years, seen a human face drain of color so quickly. It was almost comical. His jaw didn't just drop. It unhinged. His mouth opened, a perfect, silent O of pure, uncut disbelief. He looked like a fish that had just been yanked onto the dock. Suffocating in the sudden, harsh air of reality, he was busted. He was caught. And he knew it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't run across the 4 lanes of traffic to demand an explanation. I work in human resources. My entire career is built on maintaining absolute icy composure, while other people light their professional lives on fire in front of me. So I just stood there, and I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It wasn't a hello smile. It was the smile my younger sister, Maddie, calls the litigation smile. It's the smile I get right before I have to fire someone for cause. The one that says, I have the documentation, I have the witnesses, and you have just decisively run out of road. I held his frozen, panicked gaze. I let him watch as I slowly, deliberately, reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't break eye contact for a second. I tapped the screen, my thumb moving with practiced ease. I went to my favorites list and pressed the name at the very top. Marcus Ellery. I hit the speakerphone button. The electronic boop sounded impossibly loud in the morning air. Marcus, ever the professional, picked up on the second ring. Ellery. His voice was all business, sharp and clean. Marcus, I said. My voice was clear. It was bright. It was projecting perfectly across the 20 yards of asphalt separating me from my husband's life as it imploded. It's Emma Adams. Aaron was still frozen, his hand half raised in a wave he'd started and would now never complete. Remember that divorce filing Aaron asked you to prepare last week? The tension was a physical thing. A wire pulled taut across the street. Naomi, who had been halfway through the revolving door, felt it. She stopped, confused by the sudden stall in the lobby, and turned back. She looked at Aaron's horrified, ashen face, and then, inevitably, followed his gaze. Her eyes found me. Recognition dawned. Her face, usually so perfectly composed, crumpled in a split second of pure panic. Her hand instinctively went to her coat pocket, the one holding the key. She fumbled, pulling her hand back out, the white plastic card now clearly, damningly visible, clutched in her guilty fingers. It was too late to hide. I didn't wait for the fallout. I didn't wait for the sputtering excuses or the manufactured rage that would surely follow the shock. I pressed end on the call, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and turned my back on both of them. I started walking, ungainly heels and all, toward our shared house in Maple Heights. The shock was already fading, replaced by something cold, sharp, and intensely focused. My head wasn't spinning, it was calibrated. The blood wasn't rushing in my ears. It was cooling, settling. The operations manager in my brain was taking over. The game wasn't over. I hadn't lost. The parameters had just changed. I wasn't a victim standing on a street corner. I was a strategist walking onto a battlefield. The walk home was a 2-mile blur. I don't remember the wind, or the city noise, or the heels that were now actively drawing blood. I just remember the click of my key in the front door lock, the sound impossibly loud in the silent, empty entryway. Aaron's battered sneakers were gone from the mat. His stupid basketball jacket wasn't on the hook. Good. I kicked off the heels. They skidded across the hardwood floor and hit the baseboard with a satisfying, expensive thwack. I walked straight to the kitchen, bypassing the filtered water pitcher on the counter, and yanked open the refrigerator. My hand closed around the neck of the half-empty bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, the $9 kind, the one we'd stopped buying for company. I didn't bother with a glass. I leaned against the quartz countertop, the one I'd spent 6 weeks arguing with the contractor over, and took a long, burning pull. The wine was acidic and tasted like green apples in failure. It was perfect. My mind wasn't on the hotel. Not yet. My mind was rewinding the tape. Just 24 hours. Last night, we were eating microwave lasagna. Not even the good brand, but the store-brand monstrosity he'd grabbed because it was his turn to cook. The kitchen was quiet, except for the scrape of forks on ceramic. He'd been pushing the congealed cheese around his plate for 5 minutes before he finally spoke. "We've grown apart, Emma." He said it to the lasagna, not to me. His voice was tired, flat, rehearsed. "You're always working," he continued, finally looking up. His eyes were carefully blank. "You're always managing everything. It's like living with a—" "What? Aaron, a competent adult?" I'd asked, my own voice dangerously calm. "I'm just not happy," he'd said, dropping his fork. "I think I deserve to be happy." I deserve to be happy, the modern American battle cry, the ultimate justification for any act of selfishness. As if happiness was some finite resource he'd been cheated out of, and I was the one hoarding it in my 401k. I hadn't cried. I hadn't yelled. I'd simply stood, picked up his plate still half full of anemic pasta, and carried it to the sink. So what does deserve to be happy look like? "Aaron, I want a divorce," he'd said to my back. 8 years. We'd been married for 8 years. We'd met at a dive bar when I was still an intern, and he was still exploring his options. We'd started with nothing. Our first apartment was a 3rd-floor walk-up with plumbing that rattled and neighbors who fought in a language we didn't understand. I was the one working a stable, boring, soul-crushing job at Northbridge Benefit Solutions, making sure our health insurance was paid. He was the one with the dreams. His dream was BrightPath Wellness, a mental health startup, an app, because of course it was an app. He wanted to disrupt the mindfulness space. I supported him. I worked overtime to cover the rent while he paid coders in equity he didn't have. I listened to him practice his investor pitch 100 times, helping him trim the buzzwords and sound like he'd actually run a company before. And it worked. He got his funding. He became a co-founder. I climbed my own ladder, moving from coordinator to specialist to manager, bringing home the steady paycheck that allowed him to be a risk taker. We bought a house in Maple Heights. We became the couple that brought good wine to dinner parties. We became a success story. And Naomi Price was there for all of it. Naomi, my best friend, the person who knew me better than anyone. We'd been assigned as random roommates our freshman year of college. A terrified, overachieving HR manager in training and a whirlwind of charisma, art, and impulse. She was the one who taught me how to drink tequila. I was the one who proofread her finals so she'd actually graduate. She was my maid of honor. Her speech at our wedding had made everyone cry, including me. She'd talked about our soul friend connection, about how she knew Aaron was the one because he was the only man who understood how special I was. When she got laid off from that trendy marketing firm 3 years ago, I paid her rent for 2 months, no questions asked. It's just money, now, I told her. You'd do it for me. When Aaron said BrightPath needed a freelance branding consultant, who did I recommend? When they needed an event planner for their launch party, who did I insist was the only choice? Naomi. She was creative. She was networked. She understood the vibe. She'd been working on a retainer for BrightPath for the last year. I took another swig of the cheap wine. The cold, logical part of my brain, the HR manager part, was already connecting dots. The shock on the sidewalk wasn't shocking. It was confirmation. The suspicion had been a slow leak, not a flood. It started about 3 months ago. Little things, discrepancies. Aaron, who was pathologically lazy on weekends, suddenly started going to the gym at 9 p.m. Just stressed, he'd mumble, grabbing his keys. I need to clear my head. His phone, which used to be permanently attached to a charger on the kitchen counter, was now always in his pocket. Screen down. Notifications silenced. Then there were the investor meetings. They were always last minute. They were always running late. At the same time, Naomi went flaky. Our standing Thursday morning coffee became a casualty. Client crisis. Babe, I am drowning, rain check. She'd text. An hour later, her Instagram story would pop up, a perfectly filtered shot of an artisanal latte, geotagged at a cafe 2 blocks from the BrightPath office. Another time, Aaron had an overnight trip to Cleveland to meet a potential new fund. He left on a Tuesday morning. That same afternoon, I texted Naomi to see if she wanted to come over, share this exact bottle of wine, and complain about our husbands. She didn't text back. She didn't pick up my calls. For 24 hours. Radio silence. When she finally surfaced, she was breathless with apologies. Oh my God. You will not believe the night I had. I met this guy at a hotel bar. So mysterious. So intense. I think I'm in trouble. She giggled. I felt my stomach clench. The first time, it's an anomaly. The second time, it's a coincidence. The third time, it's a pattern. And I am an operations manager. I am paid to find patterns. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a single plate in my line of work. Confrontation without documentation is just noise. It's an emotional outburst that gets you labeled hysterical. So I did what I do best. I opened a new, password-protected Excel spreadsheet on my personal laptop, and I started documenting dates, times, excuses. I cross-referenced Aaron's investor trips with Naomi's client crises. I noted the nights he went to the gym and the corresponding gaps in her social media activity. The pattern wasn't just damning, it was insulting. I finished the wine, the bottle now empty in my hand. Aaron thought he was in control. He thought he'd dropped his divorce bomb last night, and that I was sitting here, heartbroken, wondering what I did wrong. He thought the scene on the sidewalk this morning was the beginning of his problem. He was so wrong. My suspicion hadn't started 3 months ago. It started in January, and I hadn't just made a spreadsheet. I'd already hired a private investigator. What I saw this morning, that pathetic, sleazy keycard handoff. That wasn't the start of the movie. It was just the trailer. I found Sam Reddick through a referral from Marcus Ellery's office, listed under Discreet Inquiries. The name of his firm was Pinebridge Investigations, based out of a nondescript office park in the suburbs of Riverton. Sam Reddick was 49 years old, a former Riverton PD detective who looked exactly like he'd quit the force one day too late. He had the weary eyes, the coffee-stained tie, and the practiced air of a man who had seen every possible variation of human stupidity. He looked like an uncle who complains about the weather, but his reviews said he was surgically precise. We met at the Oakley Diner, a 24-hour joint off the highway that smelled of stale grease and industrial-strength bleach. It was the perfect place for secrets. Nobody was listening, and everyone was too tired to care. I sat in the cracked vinyl booth, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't get the sugar packet open. I felt like a criminal. I felt like a fool. So, Sam said, not looking up from the laminated menu. He ordered black coffee. You think your husband is cheating? It wasn't a question. It was a diagnosis. Yes, I said. My voice was too high, too thin. But it's not just that. I tried to explain. I was nervous. But the HR manager kicked in. I laid out the situation with the practiced neutrality of delivering a bad performance review. His name is Aaron Miller. The woman is Naomi Price. She's my best friend. Sam sighed. A long, rattling sound that smelled like old cigarettes. The best friend. Classic. Look, Mrs. Adams. Emma, I cut in, my voice suddenly finding its floor. And I don't just need photos of them at a motel. I need something legal, something that holds up. I need to know everything. I took a breath, the smell of burnt toast hanging in the air. And I need you to look at his finances, his company. That made him look up. He finally met my eyes. The tired, bored look faded, replaced by a flicker of genuine, professional interest. His company, Sam repeated. Bright Path Wellness. It's a startup. Naomi, the friend, she's a consultant for him. It feels dirty, Sam finished. He took a sip of his coffee. Startup? Best friend? Wife's money is likely involved. He allowed a small, grim smile. You're right. This isn't standard. He leaned forward just an inch. This is the kind of stuff the lawyers like. Sam was worth every penny of the retainer I paid him, which I'd pulled from a private savings account Aaron didn't know existed. For 10 weeks, he was a ghost. I just lived my life, playing the part of the slightly stressed, overworked but supportive wife. I listened to Aaron's complaints about cash flow. I listened to Naomi's complaints about the shallow dating pool in Riverton. I smiled, I nodded, and I waited for Sam's reports. The first update came via a secure email drop. Just photos, Aaron and Naomi, laughing as they walked into the lobby of the downtown Hyatt. The timestamp was 2:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. Aaron was supposed to be in a marathon coding session with his tech team. The next week, Aaron told me he had to fly to Chicago for a last-minute pitch to a VC fund. Sam's report showed Aaron's car never left the long-term parking at Riverton Airport. It did show Naomi's car parked at a wellness retreat spa 2 hours outside the city. Sam's photo, taken with a long-lens camera, showed Aaron, in a spa-issued robe, joining her on the couples massage patio. The evidence was meticulous. Sam got footage from a security camera legally obtained from the parking garage of Naomi using a keycard Aaron had given her at the Westin. The timestamp on the footage matched the credit card charge on the joint account, the one I balanced for Lobby Bar. But the infidelity, while painful, wasn't the bomb. The bomb was the finances. Okay, kid, Sam said in our second meeting, sliding a thin folder across the same diner table. This is where it gets interesting. Surprise number 1, he said, tapping a document. Your friend Naomi isn't just Naomi Price. She is the sole proprietor of a limited liability company called Lumentide Creative. Sound familiar? It didn't. She registered it 6 months ago. 2 weeks later, Lumentide Creative signed an exclusive, 1-year consulting contract with Bright Path Wellness. I felt cold. I recommended her, but he never mentioned a formal contract. He said it was just freelance work. Oh, it's formal, Sam said, flipping the page. And the retainer fee is, let's say, generous, about 40% higher than the market rate for this kind of branding work in Riverton. But Aaron kept telling me, I started, my mind racing. He said Bright Path was bleeding money, that the cash flow was terrible. He said they were on the brink. Which brings us to surprise number 2. Sam pulled out a different set of papers, bank statements. Where did you get these? Let's just say there's an administrative assistant at Bright Path who doesn't appreciate being treated like a personal servant by Miss Price. People get sloppy when they're arrogant. He laid them out. Here was the Bright Path operating account, and here, every 2 weeks, was a significant wire transfer to Lumentide Creative. Look at the dates, Sam said. He pointed. April 5th. He wires $10,000 to Naomi. He tapped my own spreadsheet. the one I'd shared with him. And April 6th, that's when he told you that you needed to stop spending so much on groceries because the company was in a crunch. He was using company funds that were partially secured by our joint assets to pay his mistress an inflated salary, all while telling me to cut coupons. The final report arrived last week. It was thick, a full 3-inch binder. Sam dropped it on my kitchen table. I'd told Aaron I was working late. In reality, I was meeting my PI at my own home. "It's all in there," Sam said. Accepting the coffee I offered, it was photos, the bank statements, printed out emails. Sam had even managed to get a short video clip, grainy but undeniable, of Aaron and Naomi leaving a hotel room at the Riverside Crown, the same hotel from this morning, looking disheveled, laughing. Aaron was fixing his collar. It was not a client meeting, but the worst part, the part that made the acidic wine in my stomach feel like poison, was the last tab. Internal communications. Sam had recovered a chain of deleted emails between Aaron and Naomi, sent from their BrightPath accounts. Aaron, "Emma's grilling me about the budget again. She doesn't get it." Naomi, "She's an HR rep, baby. She thinks in spreadsheets, not in vision. You need to get her name off the joint account soon. She's too controlling. She doesn't understand the startup lifestyle. You can't build an empire if your wife is auditing your lunch receipts." Too controlling? I don't understand. Naomi, my best friend, who I had supported and housed and championed, was actively advising my husband on how to financially neuter me, painting me as the nagging shrew so they could build their empire with my money. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after Sam left. I read the entire binder, cover to cover. I looked at the pictures. I read the emails. I watched the video on the thumb drive Sam had included. Any normal person would have collapsed. Any normal person would have thrown the binder against the wall, shattered the coffee mug, and fallen into a puddle of grief and betrayal. But I am an operations manager. I finished my coffee. I calmly, methodically, closed the binder. The thick plastic snapped shut with a sound of finality. I picked up my phone and dialed Sam. "I read it," I said. "Kid, I'm sorry." Sam's voice was gentle for the first time. "You want me to send the file to your lawyer?" I looked at the binder. This wasn't just evidence for a judge. This was a script. "No," I said, the cold, sharp focus settling over me, erasing the last trace of the shaking woman in the diner. "We're not just talking about divorce anymore. Sam, we're talking about a campaign." Marcus Ellery's office was not what you'd expect. It was a small, brutally modern suite on the 21st floor of a downtown Riverton high-rise. There were no shelves of dusty law books. There was just glass, chrome, and a single, terrifyingly sharp orchid on a black desk. Marcus himself was 41, divorced once, and wore a suit that probably cost more than my first car. He didn't look like a divorce lawyer. He looked like a venture capitalist who specialized in hostile takeovers, which, I was learning, was exactly what this was. He viewed litigation not as a tragedy, but as a high-stakes intellectual sport, and he loved to win. This was the man I had called from the sidewalk. This time, my hands weren't shaking. I wasn't the trembling wife from the diner. I was the senior operations manager from Northbridge, and I was here for a strategy meeting. "Emma," he said, not standing up, but gesturing to the chair opposite his desk. "Your call this morning was concise." I didn't sit immediately. I walked to his desk, unzipped my leather briefcase, and placed Sam Reddick's 3-inch binder on the gleaming black surface. The thud was loud and satisfying. "This is the documentation, Marcus," I said. "This is the campaign." He raised a single, perfectly sculpted eyebrow. For the next 20 minutes, the only sound in the office was the whisper of paper as he turned the pages. He didn't read every word. He absorbed it. He scanned the photos, his eyes lingering on the timestamps. He reviewed the bank statements, his lips twitching into a small, appreciative smirk. He read the emails between Aaron and Naomi. When he finished, he closed the binder, leaned back in his chair, and steepled his fingers. He looked, for the first time, genuinely delighted. Well, he said, they're amateurs. Gloriously, beautifully, stupidly amateurs. He laughed, a sharp, dry sound. My God, Emma, using the company credit card for the hotel, setting up a shell LLC with such an obvious paper trail, and emailing about hiding assets. It's adorable. He leaned forward. All business. Okay, here's the law. In our great fictitious state of Ohio, we are an equitable distribution state. That means the court divides marital property fairly, not necessarily 50-50. He tapped the binder. The affair itself. The court doesn't really care. Adultery is a moral failing, not a financial one. But, I started. He held up his hand. But using marital assets to fund the affair, paying for hotel rooms with joint funds, buying her gifts, siphoning company money, which is a marital asset to pay your best friend an exclusive contract, that is not an affair. That is dissipation of assets. That is financial malfeasance. And that the court cares about very, very much. He smiled. But this, Emma, this is even better. He swiveled in his chair, typed something on his keyboard, and turned the massive monitor toward me. Aaron was a busy boy last week. After he gave you his little "I deserve to be happy" speech, he had his own lawyer file the initial petition. It's the standard, nice guy divorce, irreconcilable differences, sell the house, split it all down the middle. He was hoping you'd be sad. Roll over and sign. I saw it this morning, I said, thinking of the sidewalk. Yes, but I did some digging before you even called, Marcus said. I ran a title check on your house, and I found this. He pointed to a line on the screen, a financial filing with the county recorder. 3 months ago, Aaron took out a home equity line of credit against your house for $100,000. Did you sign that? Emma. My blood went cold. No, you didn't. He forged your signature on the waiver. He took $100,000 of your equity in your house and funneled it directly into the BrightPath Wellness operating account. Marcus turned the screen back to himself. The same account, as Sam so beautifully documented, has been paying for 5-star hotels and Naomi Price's Lumentide creative consulting fees. This, my dear, has graduated. We are no longer in the land of dissipation of assets. We are in the land of outright, prosecutable fraud. The air in the room felt thin. He had mortgaged our future, my future, to pay his mistress. So, Marcus said, pulling a yellow legal pad toward him, our strategy, it's a 3-prong attack. He scrawled a 1 on the pad. Prong 1, the divorce. We're not responding to his pathetic filing. We are filing a counter-petition, and it will be a work of art. We demand a forensic audit of all finances, personal and corporate. We demand a restraining order against all BrightPath accounts, freezing them. We demand exclusive use and possession of the marital home. He leverages it. He loses it. We demand repayment of every single dollar he dissipated. We are not asking for 50%, Emma. We are asking for everything he stole, plus damages. He drew a 2. Prong 2. The civil suit? This is separate. We filed a civil action against Aaron Miller personally for fraud, against Naomi Price for tortious interference and unjust enrichment, and against Lumentide Creative for conspiracy. He drew a 3. Prong 3. The business. This is a fun one. BrightPath has other investors. Yes, minority partners. Yes, I said. A few small-time angels. They are not going to be happy, Marcus said. To learn that the co-founder is using company capital to finance his affair and is committing bank fraud using his wife's signature, it's a clear breach of fiduciary duty. We alert them. We alert the bank that holds the loan. We make his corporate life a living hell. He looked up at me. But to do this, I need you. You're not just the wife here. He tapped the binder. You're the one who found the pattern. You work in HR. You understand compliance. You understand harassment policy, documentation, and paper trails. You are not a passive victim, Emma. You're a strategic partner. The words felt like a shot of adrenaline. He was right. I wasn't a wife. I was a resource. So here's our first move, he said. Aaron filed. He thinks you're at home, crying, deciding which pots and pans you want. He has no idea you were across the street this morning. He has no idea about Sam. He has no idea about this. He patted the binder. My team, Marcus continued, will file our counterpetition today. With all of Sam's evidence attached as exhibits, it will be a nuclear bomb in the court clerk's office. But we are not going to serve him. Not yet. Why? Because he's arrogant. He's comfortable. He thinks he's in charge. I want you to go home. When he finally gets the nerve to talk to you, I want you to be confused, sad, open to discussion. Be the Emma he's expecting. Let him think he still has time to manage you. We let him get comfortable. We let him get cocky. We let him walk right into the trap. I nodded, the plan forming, cold and clear. It was a compliance strategy. I was an expert. I stood up, zipping the binder back into my bag. The weight of it felt good on my shoulder. Marcus, I said, that filing Aaron made, the one asking for a 50-50 split, yes. He's the one who asked you to prepare it for him, wasn't he? When he called you last week, pretending he wanted an amicable split. Marcus's smile was slow and lethal. He was my client for about 36 hours, right up until I ran that title check and realized what he was really asking for. He stood up, finally, and offered his hand. He's a fool, Emma. He tried to hire a shark and thought he could treat me like a goldfish. I shook his hand. It was firm and cold. As I got to the door, he called out, Emma. I turned. There are two ways this ends, he said, leaning back against his desk. We have them. The evidence is overwhelming. We can do this quietly. We'll settle in discovery. You'll get the house. You'll get your money. You'll get a very, very favorable outcome. He and his little company will be bankrupted, and they'll just fade away. It's clean. It's efficient. He paused, letting the silence hang. Or, he said, we can go to a public stage. We can make this loud. Do you want a quiet win, or do you want a spectacle? I stood there, my hand on the glass door. I thought of Naomi, the event planner, the one who lived for a spotlight, the one who always had to be the center of attention, the star of every party, the one who was building an empire on my back. I turned back to Marcus, and for the first time since I'd walked in, I let myself smile, a real smile. The litigation smile. I want the stage, I said. Naomi always did love a gala. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter at 6:40 p.m. 3 days after the sidewalk incident. Aaron, I'd ignored his previous 27 frantic, panicked calls and a string of texts that had devolved from Emma, we need to talk to please just tell me you're okay. I, however, had not been okay. I have been busy. This time, I picked up. I let my voice sound small, watery, and exhausted. Hello? Emma, oh, thank God. His relief was so profound it was almost insulting. He genuinely thought I'd be the one falling apart. I don't know what you think you saw. It wasn't what it looked like. I let out a shaky breath, a performance worthy of a high school drama club. Aaron, I don't want to fight. I'm just tired. You said you wanted a divorce. I get it. The silence on his end was absolute. This was not the reaction he'd been steeling himself for. He was expecting rage, accusations, tears. He was prepared for a fight. He had no defense against compliance. Wait, what? He stammered. Are you saying you're just okay with this? I'm not okay. Aaron, I whispered. I'm heartbroken, but you're right. We have grown apart. Maybe this is for the best. Maybe we can just be adults. I was feeding him his own lines. He devoured them. Yes, Emma, exactly adults, he said, his voice normalizing. The panic replaced by the smooth managerial tone I used to find reassuring. Look, I filed those papers just to get the process started. But we can talk about it. We can go to a counselor. We can figure this out. Amicably. Yes, I said. I'd like that. I'll look for a counselor. I had no intention of booking a single appointment. And maybe we should try a trial separation. You're already at your friend's place, right? I'm at a buddy's, he lied, instantly. But yes, a separation. That's smart. It gives us space to think. Okay, Aaron, I sniffled. I have to go. I hung up. He believed it. He believed I was a team player. He believed I was a heartbroken, logical, compliant wife who was going to make this easy for him. The fool. The next day, I called Naomi. This performance was harder. The rage was closer to the surface, but I channeled it. I put on the slow friend mask. Nao, I said, when she picked up. Her voice was wary. Oh my God. Are you okay? I've been so worried. I'm not really, I said. Aaron and I were separating. Oh, honey, she cooed, her voice dripping with a thick and false sympathy that made me want to gargle with bleach. I'm so sorry. I had a feeling things were tense. You poor thing. What can I do? Can we just get lunch? I asked. Like we used to, I really need a friend. We met at the Grove, our old spot. She was already there when I arrived, a crisp white wine in her hand. She looked radiant. Betrayal, apparently, was a great moisturizer. You look amazing, I said, sliding into the booth. Oh, this old thing. She waved her hand, flashing a new, delicate gold bracelet I didn't recognize. A gift, no doubt. I'm just working insanely. Brightpath is blowing up. Aaron, I mean. The team, they're just killing it. She was bragging. She was actually bragging about the company she was helping my husband use to defraud me. That's great. Now, I said, trying to look impressed. I saw you're planning that big 5-year anniversary gala. That must be a huge project. Her eyes lit up. It's a monster. You have no idea. The vendors, the investors, the speaker contracts. I'm basically living at the office. Wow, I said, stirring my iced tea. All that plus HR compliance, that must be a lot. I know what a nightmare event policies can be. All the temporary staff guidelines, the liability waivers. Naomi's perfect smile faltered. Ugh, don't remind me. The Brightpath board is suddenly obsessed with compliance. It's like, who cares? But I have to get all these HR policies updated for the event. And it's just words. So boring. I leaned forward. The fish was nibbling the bait. Well, I said, with a small, helpful laugh. I mean, I am an HR manager. I literally write those policies in my sleep. If you want me to take a look, I could probably know. Help. Her face was a picture of relief. Emma, you'd be saving my life. Of course I would. Free labor from the friend she was actively screwing over. It was perfect. Just send me whatever you have, I said. I can look it over. You're the best, she said, squeezing my hand across the table. Her skin was warm. Which is why we need to talk about you. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a confidential, sisterly whisper. I know this is hard, but are you sure you should fight for him? What do you mean? Aaron, he's a visionary. He's on this rocket ship, and you're so practical, so grounded. Maybe the kindest thing you could do, for him and for you, is to just let him go. You both deserve to be happy. There it was, the exact same line, their official party line. We deserve to be happy. I stared at her, my best friend, my maid of honor, advising me to surrender my husband and my financial future, all so she could take my place without a messy fight. I didn't slap her. I didn't throw my tea in her face. I nodded. I squeezed her hand back. You're probably right. Nao, I'm just so controlling. I went home. I made a call. That evening, Sam Reddick, posing as an internet repairman, spent 20 minutes in my home office. When he left, a tiny, undetectable camera lens, nestled in the spine of a boring compliance textbook I never read, had a perfect, high-definition view of the shared desktop computer. 2 nights later, Aaron texted, Hey, I need to come by to get some files off the desktop for the lawyers. Is that okay? I can come when you're at your book club? Of course, I texted back. That's fine. Be an adult, right? That night, I didn't go to book club. I sat in my car, parked a block away, watching Sam's live feed on my phone. Aaron let himself in. He went straight to the office. He sat down at the desk, and for 10 minutes, he did exactly what he said he would. He copied files onto a thumb drive. Tax returns, mortgage docs. Then, he glanced at the door. He minimized the folder. He opened a browser. He logged into his BrightPath email. My fingers were ice cold as I watched. He opened an email from Naomi. Subject line, Investor Deck, Final. He opened the attached file. It was a PowerPoint presentation, but the camera was so good. I could read the slides. It wasn't just an investor deck, it was a complete plan. It detailed a search for new angel investors. It outlined a strategy to sell Aaron's founder's shares that were marital property at a massively inflated valuation. Then, slide 12, the transition. The plan was to use the new influx of cash to pay off the most immediate vendors. Then, they would both resign from BrightPath. The company, now saddled with the secret, fraudulent home equity loan and a host of other debts I had co-signed on in the early days, would be left to collapse, and they would move on. The final slide showed the logo for a new company. Lumentide, Naomi's company. They were going to strip mine BrightPath, pay themselves, and leave me holding the bag for a $100,000 bank loan and a mountain of corporate debt. I sat in my car, in the dark, watching the feed. He was whistling. He copied the file to his drive, logged out, and left, thinking he was the smartest man in the world. I walked back into my house, the silence ringing in my ears. I went to the office and stood in front of the desk. He hadn't just cheated on me. He hadn't just stolen from me. He had planned, with meticulous, spreadsheet-worthy detail, to destroy my entire financial future, to leave me bankrupt and tied to a corporate corpse. Also, he and my best friend could start their empire. I looked at the printed-out email from Naomi. She's too controlling. I sat down in the chair he'd just vacated. I thought about Marcus's offer, a quiet settlement, a clean break. No, not anymore. This wasn't about a broken heart. This was about a balance sheet. This wasn't about revenge. This was about operations. The revenge couldn't just be public. It had to be precise. It had to be documented. It had to be painful. But it had to be, above all, completely and utterly legal. I wasn't going to sink to their level. I was going to use my level to obliterate them. I spent the next week living a double life. By day, I was Emma Adams, Senior Operations Manager, the epitome of calm neutrality. I mediated a complex harassment claim between an underwriter and his team lead. It involved analyzing 2 years of passive-aggressive emails, interviewing 6 people who really did not want to talk, and documenting every he said, she said, until a clear, undeniable pattern emerged. I was thorough. I was impartial. I was terrifyingly organized. When I presented my findings to the legal team, the case was closed in an hour. This, I reminded myself, was my actual superpower, finding the pattern in the chaos and building the case file. By night, I was a spy in my own life. On Thursday, I went to a Riverton Women in Leadership networking event. I hated these things, warm Chardonnay and cold name tags, but I needed to be seen. I needed to maintain the illusion of my normal, ambitious, HR-driven life. I was picking at a cube of mystery cheese when a young woman approached me, her face tentative. Emma Adams. I turned, my professional networking smile locking into place. I vaguely recognized her. Jules Moreno, she said, extending her hand. I'm Maddie's friend from college, my sister. Maddie. Of course. Jules, right. How are you? What are you doing here? Oh, I'm just... She looked exhausted, the skin under her eyes thin and purple. I'm in marketing. I work at that startup, BrightPath Wellness. Bingo. My internal alert system went on high. I kept my face soft, concerned. Oh, Brightpath Aaron's company. It must be so exciting. I hear they're doing amazing things. Jules let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Amazing. Is that what he's calling it? She had clearly had one too many of the warm Chardonnays. Sorry, I shouldn't. It's just the vibe there is toxic. Oh no, I said, mastering the art of the concerned head tilt. Why? It's this consultant. Jules dropped her voice, leaning in. This woman, Naomi Price. I focused on keeping my breathing even. Naomi. Oh, I know her. She's a friend. She's your friend. Jules looked genuinely horrified. Oh, God. Emma, I am so sorry. Look, I shouldn't say anything. Forget I said anything. No, Jules, it's okay, I said, touching her arm, a gesture of solidarity. We're drifting. What's going on? You seem really stressed. She's running the place, Jules whispered, looking over her shoulder. But not in a good way. She gets Aaron to skip all the rules. My team and I bust our butts to get 3 competitive bids for a media buy. It's literally in our investor agreement. It's standard compliance. But she just waltzes in, says she has a guy, and Aaron signs off. Lumen Tide Creative. She hired her own company to do the event planning for the big gala. Jules continued, her words tumbling out. For a price that made our finance guy almost quit. She bypasses procurement. She bypasses HR. And Aaron just lets her. Morale is in the toilet. Everyone thinks something sketchy is happening. And we're all worried the investors are going to find out and pull the plug. I nodded, my mind filing the information. Breach of fiduciary duty. Violation of investor agreements. Wow. Jules, that sounds incredibly stressful. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. She finished her whine. I'm updating my resume. If you hear of anything at Northbridge, will you let me know? I'll keep my ears open, I said, handing her my card. The cracks were starting to show everywhere. The next email from Sam Reddick arrived 2 days later. The subject line was just update. The attachment was a video file. Grainy. Shot from a distance. Time stamped at 8 p.m. in the Brightpath parking lot. It was Aaron and Naomi. No audio, but the body language was a novel. Naomi was furious. She was jabbing her finger toward Aaron's chest. He was in full retreat, hands raised, trying to placate her. She threw her keys on the ground. He bent to pick them up. She stormed off. He followed. Sam's summary was blunt. Target F appears increasingly agitated. Checked audio logs from the bug in the car. She's convinced you're playing them. She was yelling. She's not stupid. Aaron, she's stalling. She's going to take us for everything. You have to end this. So, Naomi was feeling the pressure. She knew I wasn't that compliant. She was right to be afraid. The pressure was working on the business, too. Marcus had, through a third-party concerned industry expert, sent an anonymous one-page summary of Brightpath's vendor bidding irregularities to one of their smaller angel investors. On Monday, that investor, a man named Peter Sie, quietly liquidated his $50,000 stake, citing concerns about internal controls. The ripple effect was immediate. Aaron, I knew from a frantic text he'd sent me, work is insane, an investor just bailed, need to focus, was in full-blown crisis mode. This led, inevitably, to Naomi. She called me, crying, demanding we go to brunch. I need you. I'm falling apart. I just need my best friend. We were back at the Grove. This time, she wasn't drinking white wine. She was mainlining black coffee and picking at a dry scone. She looked awful. Her skin was blotchy. Her eyes were red. It's just this gala, she said, her voice cracking. It's my whole reputation on the line, and Aaron is checked out. He's stressed. An investor just pulled out some paperwork bullshit. I feigned innocence. Oh, no, is the company okay? It's fine, she said, too quickly. It's just, I'm handling everything. The stress is too much. She was venting. She was complaining about the man she was sleeping with, to the wife she was betraying. The audacity was breathtaking. "I'm just so worried," she said, looking at me, her eyes filled with genuine tears. "About losing this contract, about everything. I feel like my whole life is spinning out." She was terrified. This wasn't the confident empire builder from the emails. This was a scared woman who had tied her horse to a broken wagon. She was emotionally volatile. She needed approval, even from the person she was destroying. I filed that away. 2. I reached across the table and patted her hand. "You're just stressed. Now, it will all work out. You're the best event planner in Riverton. You'll pull it off," she sniffled, trying to believe me. The biggest crack appeared that night. It was the last report I would ever need from Sam Reddick. He had been tracking them, trying to get definitive audio of the financial plotting. They were sloppy. They met at an outdoor cafe, thinking the noise would cover them. Sam's parabolic mic, however, was excellent. I opened the audio file. It was just background noise at first traffic. A distant espresso machine. Aaron's voice. "I just need you to calm down. The investor thing is handled. We just need to stick to the plan." Naomi's voice. "The plan. The plan is falling apart. Aaron. And you're not listening to me." What am I not listening to?" "I told you. I'm late. I took a test this morning." The sound of a spoon clattering onto a ceramic saucer. Aaron's voice. A thin whisper. "What did it say?" Naomi's voice. Breaking. "It was positive. Aaron. It was positive. I'm pregnant." Silence. Just the traffic. "Oh, God," Aaron whispered. "Oh, God. Naomi, are you sure?" "I'm sure, and I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I want to." Her voice dissolved into quiet sobs. "We'll handle it," Aaron said, his voice gaining a false, panicked confidence. "There are options. We'll handle it. Just don't tell anyone. Don't tell Emma." Naomi's laugh was bitter and wet. "Why, think she'll throw me a baby shower." The audio file ended. I sat in the dark of my living room, the glow of the laptop screen lighting my face. I didn't move for a very long time. A baby. This wasn't a game anymore. This wasn't a slick financial maneuver. They had created a life, a potential life, a child who was going to be born into this toxic, fraudulent, secret-filled mess. My first instinct was to call Marcus and call everything off, to just settle, to take the quiet win and let them disappear. But then I thought about it. I thought about the kind of people they were, the kind of man who would leverage his wife's home, and the kind of woman who would help him. People who built their empire on lies. What kind of parents would they be? My resolve didn't soften. It crystallized. It became diamond hard. This child, this innocent, unborn factor, didn't deserve to have my name, my credit, and my financial ruin as its foundation. My plan could no longer be quiet. A quiet settlement would just let them escape. They would take their money, move to another city, and build their lives all over again. With this child in tow. No, the plan had to be public. It had to be a detonation. My revenge wouldn't be aimed at the child. My revenge would be aimed, with surgical precision, at the two adults who had been reckless with everything, with my money, with my friendship, and now, with a life. They had to be stopped. They had to be exposed. I picked up the phone. It was time to start planning the gala. The idea was born in the fluorescent hell of a Target. I was not in a war room. I was not in a slick lawyer's office. I was in the aisle between seasonal decor and cleaning supplies, holding a 6-pack of paper towels. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd taken a half day for personal wellness, which was my corporate-approved excuse for not being able to look at my colleagues without wanting to scream. I turned the corner, my red cart squeaking, and I saw it, an end cap display. "Celebrate your story." It screamed in glittery cursive font. It was stacked with party planning junk, anniversary banners, corporate gala invitations. Congratulations balloons. I just stood there, staring at the tacky gold lettering, and the plan didn't just form. It downloaded. It arrived fully formed, precise, and perfect. A gala, a stage, Naomi's natural habitat. The confirmation came that very night, in a text from Jules Moreno, my new, accidental, and very nervous mole inside Brightpath. Hey, Emma, you weren't wrong. They're panicking about that investor who pulled out. They just announced a 5-year Founders Celebration Gala. Mandatory attendance. It's supposed to reassure everyone that we're stronger than ever. Naomi's running the whole thing. We're all dying. The universe had just handed me the venue, the guest list, and the technical crew. I waited 2 days. I let Naomi stew in her own stress. I let the pregnancy nausea and the investor panic and the sheer logistics of a high-stakes event work on her. Then, I called. Her voice was a wreck. I literally cannot talk. I'm trying to source 300 gluten-free appetizers and the lighting guy is trying to triple his fee. Oh, no. That sounds awful, I said. My voice was soft, pitiful, even. Listen, I've been thinking a lot. About us. About what you said at brunch. About me being controlling. I let a little tremor enter my voice. And you were right. I've been so focused on my own pain I haven't been a good friend. You're my best friend. Now. And you're drowning. I want to help. Silence. Pure, suspicious silence. Help how? She asked, her voice tight. With the gala, I said, as if it were obvious. You said you were buried in that HR policy crap, the values slides, the corporate responsibility junk, now. That is literally what I do. It's boring. It's just words, and I can do it in my sleep. Let me take that off your plate. Please, I need to feel useful. I need to be your friend again. I could hear her brain working. I could hear the calculations. Free labor. From the wife she was placating, the wife she had just successfully convinced was letting go. It was an irresistible bargain. Oh, she finally gushed, the relief flooding her voice. That would be a lifesaver. Are you sure you're okay with it? With Brightpath? I'm fine, I lied. It's just work, right? Send me the brand guide and the drive link. I was in. My kitchen table became the new operations center. Sam and Marcus sat opposite me, the 3-inch binder of evidence open between them. A public presentation, Marcus said, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. Emma, you are, without question, my favorite client. This isn't just litigation. This is theater. It's high risk, Sam countered, even the pragmatist. You've got AV crews. You've got event staff. You can't just walk up with a thumb drive. Kid, they'll have a master deck. You'll never get your file to air. I won't have to, I said. I had already worked this out. I'm the helpful HR manager. I'll be running my own laptop. I'll just tell them my slides have complex animations that only work from my machine. It's a standard corporate excuse, but they will need a file to review beforehand. A decoy. Marcus leaned forward. An A deck and a B deck. I love it. Exactly, I said. Sam, your job is to build Deck A. I pushed a thumb drive toward him. It needs to be professional, corporate, and completely boring. Use the Brightpath brand guide. Fill it with stock photos of diverse, smiling teams. Use vapid words. Synergy. Integrity. Transparency. Make it the kind of presentation that Aaron and Naomi will approve without reading. Easy, Sam grunted. Marcus, I said, turning to him, you and I build Deck B. This is the real one. This is the legal file, translated into PowerPoint. Every slide is an exhibit. We open with the timeline. We move to the hotel receipts. We show the Lumentide creative contract. We show the wire transfers. We show the forged signature on the home equity loan. We end with the emails. No commentary, just facts. This is better than theater, Marcus said, his eyes gleaming. This is a deposition, in public. There was just one problem. I was in the system, but I wasn't on the schedule. I needed a reason to be on that stage, at that podium, with that laptop. I used Naomi's own desperation against her, with Jules's help. I identified BrightPath's most demanding high-maintenance investor, a woman named Clara Vaughn. Then, using a secure, anonymous email service, I sent a message to the general BrightPath info account, which I knew Naomi was monitoring like a hawk. The email read, "To the Gala Committee. As an investor, I am flying in for this event. I truly hope the presentation will include a segment on the founder's journey from the family perspective. In today's volatile market, investors crave authenticity and stability. Seeing the partnership behind the founder is incredibly compelling. Mrs. Adams's perspective on the early days of sacrifice would be invaluable. I look forward to it." I signed it. A concerned partner. It took less than an hour. Naomi, desperate to please investors and show stability, forwarded the email to Aaron with a note. "Aaron, we have to do this. This is exactly the kind of family values crap Clara Vaughn eats up. You have to get Emma to speak." The call from Aaron came that night. He was hesitant, awkward. "Hey, so a weird idea was floated by the team," he stammered. "The investors kind of want to hear from you at the gala, just for a few minutes. You know about the early days, the sacrifice, how we started, to show stability." I let the silence stretch, filling it with my imaginary, wounded hesitation. "Oh, Aaron," I said, my voice small. "I don't know. It's really your night." I know, he said, jumping in. "But it would really help the company. Just a few words. It would mean a lot." "Well," I sighed, "if it's for the company, okay, I'll do it. For the company." I was officially on the program. I even offered to align our messaging, my own special brand of corporate poison. I had Aaron come over to the house to practice his speech. He stood in our living room, pacing, practicing his narrative of heroic sacrifice, the one where he was the visionary genius. "I'll talk about the all-nighters, the risk, how we all pitched in," he said, beaming, proud of his own mythology. "That's great. Aaron," I said, taking notes. "Be specific. They love details. What about that Chicago trip that secured the first-round funding? That's a great story." He didn't even flinch. He didn't remember that the Chicago trip was when Sam had photographed him at the spa with Naomi. He just nodded, absorbing the praise. I was handing him the rope. As the HR helper, I also volunteered to manage the seating chart. "It's just admin. Nao, let me handle the RSVPs and the table cards." Naomi agreed, grateful. I put my parents, who still thought we were working on it, at table 2, front and center. I put my sister, Maddie, who knew every single detail and had threatened to bring binoculars, right beside them. I put Clara Vaughn and the other key investors at table 1, directly in my line of sight, and Aaron and Naomi, of course, were at the head table. The king and his new queen. There was one final piece of strategy, the pregnancy. I opened the Deck B file and stared at the empty Exhibit G slide. Its motive, Emma, Marcus had argued, in our last meeting. It shows desperation. It shows why they were accelerating the fraud. It's powerful. "No," I said. My voice was final. "We are not touching it. This isn't about her body. And it's not about that child. That child is the only innocent party in this entire mess. We are not using a fetus as a weapon." I would not become them. "My revenge is not aimed at a baby," I said. "It's aimed at their bank accounts. This is about fraud. This is about theft. We stick to the balance sheet. We stick to the law. I'm destroying their company, not their family." Marcus looked at me for a long time. "Your call, Emma," he said, and for the first time, he looked impressed. "Clean. I like it." 1 week before the gala, the house was quiet. I had a single, black, encrypted thumb drive. I had Deck A, the decoy, already emailed to Naomi. I had the final version of Deck B. I had a printed copy of my speech, with my cues marked. I had a timeline. I put all of it, the speech, the timeline, the drive, into a crisp, black folder from my Northbridge office. On the white label, I printed one word: Showtime. The final 24 hours were a masterclass in controlled panic, not just for me, but for everyone. The day before the gala, I was at the venue, a renovated bank lobby downtown with soaring ceilings and terrible acoustics supposedly to help Naomi. I was, in fact, there for the tech rehearsal. Naomi was a mess. Her hair was scraped back in a lumpy bun. She was wearing the same black leggings she'd had on 3 days ago, and her skin had the gray, waxy sheen of pure, unadulterated stress. "The video loop is desynced," she shrieked at a bored-looking AV technician. "The audio feed in the main hall isn't patched. It's a 5-year gala, not a middle school assembly." Aaron, who was supposed to be supporting her, was just pacing in the corner, cussing into his phone. "I don't care what Shay did," he was hissing. "You tell Clara Vaughn that our projections are solid." Solid. This was my opening. The main projector screen flickered and died. A groan of despair escaped Naomi's lips. "Oh, no, Nio," I said, walking up, my voice oozing helpful, competent concern. "AV issues, that's the worst." "It's a disaster," she said, her eyes welling up with those fast crocodile tears. "They can't get the master deck to load properly." "You know," I said, "I have my HR values presentation on my laptop. It has some specific animations. Why don't I just plug in and test the connection, just to make sure my part works? We can check the HDMI line while we're at it." I looked at AV Tech. "Is it a standard HDMI or a Thunderbolt?" I brought both adapters. The tech looked at me with the first flicker of respect he'd shown all day. "HDMI? Port 3? Naomi just waved a dismissive, exhausted hand. "Fine, whatever. Just make sure it works." I plugged my laptop in, the screen flickered, and then my desktop wallpaper, a bland, corporate-approved image of a mountain appeared on the 20-foot screen above the stage. I opened Deck A, the decoy. The synergy and integrity slides looked perfectly harmless, perfectly boring. "Looks good," the tech said over the God mic. "Great," I said. Then, as I packed up my laptop, I hit a few keys. I was checking the port settings, the Wi-Fi signal strength, and ensuring my machine would bypass any local network firewall. It would. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Sam. "Got a problem. My source at Clara Vaughn's firm says she's on the fence. She heard the Shay rumor, and now she's hearing whispers about founder misconduct. She might pull out of the gala. If she's not in the room, the bomb doesn't hit the main target." I typed back a reply, my thumb moving under the table. "We don't delay. If we wait, Aaron has time to move the money. We go, with or without her. She'll get the email either way." I looked up and saw Naomi watching me, a strange, suspicious look on her face. "You're really calm," she said. "I'm an HR manager." "No," I said with a thin smile. "My entire job is being the calmest person in the room while everything is on fire." I went to the restroom. It smelled like industrial lemon and anxiety. I was splashing cold water on my wrists when the door opened and Naomi stumbled in. Her face crumpled. She didn't see me at first. She leaned against the marble counter, stared at her reflection, and just let out a single, shuddering sob. "Naomi," I said, all soft concern. She jumped. "Oh, God, I'm sorry. I'm just so tired." She turned to me, her eyes red and desperate. It was the confession, the one I'd been bracing for. "I'm just in this situation," she said, twisting a ring on her finger. "I've met someone, and it's a love that society wouldn't understand. You know, she was testing me. She was trying to see if I was a safe harbor. It's so hard," she went on, not waiting for my answer. "When you feel like you're doing something wrong but it feels so right. I feel so guilty, especially about you." She was almost there, almost admitting it. I stood there. I was the rock. I was the blank, supportive wall. I thought about the forged signature. I thought about the Lumentide contract. "Guilt is a heavy thing to carry. Now," I said, my voice a perfect, neutral warm, and then I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I put my arms around her. I gave her a light, stiff, friend hug. Her body was trembling. I felt nothing. No, that's a lie. I felt a cold, sharp satisfaction. "You'll get through this," I whispered, patting her back. "You're stronger than you think." I was, in that moment, the most magnificent liar in the state of Ohio. That night, Aaron showed up at the house. He didn't text, he just rang the bell. Knowing I'd be home, he looked like hell. He hadn't shaved in days. He was wearing the same wrinkled t-shirt he'd been wearing for 3. The visionary founder was gone. This was just a scared man in debt. "Emma," he said, standing on the porch. He looked weak, pathetic. "Can I come in?" Just for a minute, I stepped aside. I was not his wife. I was a strategist, and the opposing player had just shown up at my door, unarmed. He stood in the entryway, looking at the house as if he'd never seen it before. "I'm tired," he said, rubbing his face. "This is all it's too much. The gala, the investors, everything. I don't want to fight." He looked at me, his eyes pleading. This was his last, desperate move. The pity play. "Can't we just end this quietly, you and me? No courts, no lawyers. Let's just sell the house, split it. We can be nice about it. A quiet win." Marcus's words. I looked at him, at this man who had, just days before, been actively plotting my financial ruin. He wasn't sorry. He was just losing. "Aaron," I said, and my voice was so soft, so gentle. "We're both so tired. Let's just get through the gala. Let's get through tomorrow." I gave him a small, sad smile. "We can talk about everything after that. Okay." Hope bloomed on his stupid, tired face. He thought I was yielding. He thought I was the same old, practical, compliant Emma. "Okay," he whispered, nodding. "Okay, after tomorrow." He left. I locked the deadbolt. At 10 p.m., 2 more near disasters. First, a text from Jules. "Emma, be careful. The finance guy. Mark. He's telling people it's weird that you're so involved. He said he thinks the wife is playing some kind of game to get leverage. My cover was blown. They were suspicious of me. I forwarded the text to Sam. Need a diversion. Now." 10 minutes later, Sam replied, "Done." He used his disgruntled employee source to send an anonymous, typo-filled email to the BrightPath board, accusing a rival company, a known competitor, of trying to poach their investors and spreading lies. The email was just chaotic enough, just paranoid enough, to be believable. The suspicion was successfully diverted. Second, an email from Naomi. Subject urgent. AV file. "Emma, the AV team is demanding a final version of all presentations right now to load onto the master. They won't let anyone use their own laptops. Send me your final file. Now." This was it. The real failsafe. She was trying to box me in. My fingers flew across the keyboard. "Now. Just got this. I'm so sorry. I'm already in bed. I've attached my file deck A. But please note, my section slides 1215 has proprietary HR compliance data from Northbridge's servers. Our legal team will only allow it to be presented from my secure, encrypted laptop. I can't even email the real file. It's a breach issue. I am so sorry to be difficult, but legal would have my head. I'll just have to plug in, run my 3 slides, and unplug. It will be fast. I promise. This is such a nightmare. I'm so sorry to add to your stress. You're a hero for handling all this." I hit send. I'd given her a decoy. I'd given her a non-negotiable corporate excuse she couldn't argue with, and I'd flattered her. She replied 3 minutes later, "Fine, whatever. Just don't break anything." I was in. The trap was set. I went to bed. I did not sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the house silent around me. I wasn't thinking about Aaron. I wasn't thinking about Naomi, or the baby, or the years I had wasted. I was thinking about the employees at BrightPath, like Jules, who were about to see their company detonated. I was thinking about my parents, who were going to watch their daughter publicly end her marriage. I was thinking about the investors, the bank, the legal filings. Marcus had all the emails queued. At my verbal cue, my final line, he would hit send. Sam's team would simultaneously push the full binder to Clara Vaughn and the other investors. It was a multi-front assault. This was not a small, private act of revenge. This was a public execution. It was a scorched earth campaign. It was an operations strategy. And I was the one giving the order. The weight of it, the sheer, irreversible responsibility of it, was crushing. This was the moment of go. I got up at 5 a.m. The sun wasn't even a rumor. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out the black folder. I opened it and looked at my speech. My eyes went right to the last page, to the sentence I had underlined in red ink 3 separate times. You're only powerless if you decide to stay quiet. I folded the speech in half, picked up my coffee, and went to go pick out the perfect dress. I was ready. The gala was exactly as tacky as I'd imagined. Naomi had outdone herself. The venue, the old Merchants Bank lobby, was a cavernous space of marble and echo. She had drowned it in warm, amber uplighting to hide the water stains on the ceiling. Every table was a perfect circle of crisp white linen, sparkling wine glasses, and a floral arrangement that probably cost more than my first paycheck. At the far end, a massive 20-foot banner hung behind the stage, bearing the BrightPath Wellness logo. The font was serene. The color palette was calming. It was a cathedral built to honor a lie. This wasn't a bank. This wasn't a party. It was a Broadway theater. And I was the only one who had read the real script. I stood near the entrance, a glass of sparkling water in my hand. I was wearing a dress I'd bought with my own, private, Northbridge earned money. It was a deep, sharp, sapphire blue. It was not a wife dress. It was a senior management dress. It was armor, and I watched my audience arrive. Table 2. Near the front, my parents. My mother, Catherine, was beaming, clutching my father's hand. She'd pulled me aside earlier, whispering, "Oh, Emma, I'm so glad you're supporting him. This is what marriage is." I just smiled, kissed her cheek, and told her I loved her. Beside her sat my sister, Maddie, and her husband. Maddie, who knew the entire plan, was vibrating with a chaotic, barely suppressed glee. She caught my eye from across the room and gave me a slow, conspiratorial half-smirk. She looked like she'd brought popcorn in her clutch. Table 1, the investor's table, Clara Vaughn. She had arrived exactly on time, not a minute before or after. She was a severe woman in her late 50s, wearing a brutally minimalist black suit. She did not drink. She did not mingle. She sat, her back rigid, scanning the room as if she were auditing the load-bearing columns. She was exactly the woman I'd hoped she'd be, and scattered throughout, the BrightPath staff. I saw Jules Moreno at a table in the back with the other marketing peons. She looked nervous, pale, and kept glancing at me, then at Aaron, then at the exit, as if plotting her escape route. Then, the stars of the show arrived. Aaron made his entrance. The man of the hour. He was wearing a new, impeccably tailored suit, the color of a moonless night. He was the picture of the visionary founder. He glad-handed. He shook hands. He clapped investors on the back. He was performing, but I knew him. I watched his hand as he reached for a glass of champagne from a passing tray. It was shaking. Just a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor. He was terrified. And 5 steps behind him, as always, was Naomi. She had chosen her dress well. It was a deep, forgiving emerald green velvet. It was high-necked, long-sleeved, and draped, a deliberate and elegant piece of concealment. It did its job. You wouldn't notice the slight, new curve of her abdomen unless you were looking for it. She was pale, but her makeup was a flawless mask. She looked beautiful. She looked like a tragic, high-class con artist. I let them get settled. I let them work the room. Then, I began my own rounds. I drifted toward a group of mid-level managers. "Emma Adams," I said, extending my hand. "Aaron's wife." One of them, a man I recognized from Sam's file as the finance guy Mark, looked surprised. "Oh, hi. We didn't know you'd be here." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, with a bright, tight smile. I'm just so proud of the transparency this company is built on. I moved on. I found a local journalist Aaron had invited. Hi, I'm Emma Adams, Aaron's wife. For now. The journalist blinked. Excuse me. Oh, it's just my little joke, I said, patting his arm. We're in the middle of a separation. He's just so visionary, he doesn't have time for the details. Like marriage. I smiled sweetly and walked away, leaving the journalist staring, his pen suddenly in his hand. Naomi saw me. She saw me laughing, circulating. She saw the journalist scribbling. A flicker of unease crossed her perfect face. She started to move toward me, but just then, the lights dimmed. The show was starting. The hired MC, a man with a voice as smooth and empty as a plastic cup, took the stage. He welcomed everyone. He made a joke about wellness that nobody laughed at. We sat through the requisite corporate nonsense, a slick video, full of smiling stock photo patients and sweeping drone shots of the Riverton skyline, all set to an uplifting, royalty-free piano score. The CEO, Aaron's co-founder, gave a speech about disruption and synergy and scaling our vision. It was Deck A, live on stage. A pre-recorded video of employees played. They talked about the family at BrightPath. Jules Moreno was in it for a split second, her eyes screaming hostage video. I just sat at my assigned seat at the family table, watching. My pulse was a slow, steady, metronomic beat. I was not nervous. I was in my element. This was an audit. Then, the MC came back. And now, a few words from the heart, the man who started it all. Not with a business plan, but with a dream. Please welcome the co-founder and visionary of BrightPath Wellness, Aaron Miller. The applause was dutiful. Aaron stood, buttoned his new suit jacket, and strode to the stage, soaking in the spotlight. He was home. He gave the speech I'd helped him write, the one about sacrifice. I remember, he said, his voice thick with practiced emotion. When this company was just an idea, sketched on a napkin at a diner. I remember the all-nighters, the risk. He talked about the Chicago trip, the one that saved the company. He told the story, exactly as I'd framed it for him. He was the hero. He was the risk-taker. He was a lonely genius. Listening to him, you would never know that another person, a wife, had been working a 60-hour week at a boring insurance company to pay the mortgage he was now illegally borrowing against. You would never know that my inheritance from my grandmother had paid for the diner napkin he was now mythologizing. He erased me. Standing on that stage, in his new suit, he erased 8 years of my life, my money, and my sacrifice, and replaced it with his own. Solitary legend. I sat there. I listened. I recorded every single, self-aggrandizing lie. I let the cold, clean anger build. It was fuel. But I didn't do it alone, he said, wrapping up. He smiled his humble smile, the one for the cameras. This was a team effort, and this celebration is for all of you. He walked off to another round of applause. He was glowing. He'd done it. He'd saved his company. The MC returned to the podium. Wow, thank you, Aaron, for that powerful journey. I discreetly pulled my laptop from my bag. Placing it on my lap, I powered it on. But folks, the MC continued, reading from his card, the journey wasn't his alone, as we heard. It takes a team. It takes a family. And we have someone special with us tonight. The woman who was there from day one. The one who saw that diner napkin and said, "Go for it." I looked at the head table. Aaron was smiling, nodding, accepting congratulations from his co-founder. Naomi, however, was not. She was staring at her empty champagne flute, her hand gripping the stem so tightly her knuckles were white. She knew. She felt it. The air in the room had changed. Ladies and gentlemen, to share a few words on the founding journey from a very personal perspective, please give a warm, warm welcome to Emma Adams. The applause was polite, confused, even. My parents were clapping, my mom's eyes shining. Maddie was already holding her phone up, probably to record. Clara Vaughn, at table 1, was watching me, her expression unreadable, calculating. I stood up, I picked up my laptop, I walked toward the stage. The heels I was wearing were not the ones from that day on the street. These were black, sharp, and silent. I felt the spotlight hit my face. It was warm and bright. I felt the eyes of 200 people land on me. I felt the weight of the moment. I was standing on the stage. I was in the witness box. I was at the podium. The stage manager, a man I hadn't seen before, looked confused. Ma'am, where's your thumb drive? I gave him my best, brightest, most apologetic HR smile. Oh, I'm so sorry. Proprietary legal files from Northbridge. Can't be on a thumb drive. I just need to plug in. HDMI, he grumbled. But he pulled the cable and handed it to me. I plugged it in. I walked to the podium. I set my laptop down. I took a breath. I was no longer shaking. I was no longer angry. I was operational. I looked out. I saw my parents. I saw Maddie, who gave me a sharp, single nod. I looked at the head table. Aaron was still smiling, that vacant, self-satisfied look on his face. And I looked at Naomi. She was looking right at me, her eyes wide, a dawning, sickening horror just beginning to register. I turned my head slightly, and I looked at the massive 20-foot screen behind me. My laptop had connected. The mountain wallpaper was gone. In its place, in the crisp, clean BrightPath brand font, was the title slide of Deck B. It did not say Synergy. It did not say Integrity. It said, What I'm really thankful for. I stood at the podium, the warmth of the spotlight on my face. The room was utterly silent. 200 people, waiting. Thank you, I said. My voice was amplified, clear, and perfectly calm. It didn't shake. I am truly thankful to be here. Aaron's right. It's a journey, and a journey is just a story. But it's so important to check the story we're telling, to make sure it's the true story. I saw my mother nod, smiling, proud of her daughter's generic wisdom. Aaron was still beaming. I clicked the remote in my hand. Slide 2. A new image filled the 20-foot screen. It was a high-resolution photograph. Aaron, he was walking out of the lobby of the downtown Hyatt. The timestamp in the corner read, Tuesday, February 19th, 2:37 p.m. A low, confused murmur started at the back tables. I'm thankful for Aaron's dedication, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. Here he is, at the Hyatt, during what I believed was a marathon coding session. I paused, then added, He's a truly dedicated founder, just not to the company. The murmuring stopped. The air went tight. Clara Vaughn, at table 1, leaned forward. Click, slide 3, a timeline. On the left, a list of dates. February 19th, Hyatt. March 4th, Westin. March 21st, Spa Retreat. On the right, a copy of the BrightPath corporate credit card statement, a statement I used to balance. Client meeting Hyatt. Team building Westin. Investor retreat Spa. I'm thankful, I said, for fiscal responsibility, for knowing how to code an expense. You see, Aaron has been so busy, so many client meetings. Clara Vaughn was no longer leaning. She was sitting bolt upright, her face pale, her eyes locked on the screen. Click, slide 4. It was the photo, the one that started it all, the grainy, undeniable shot of the Riverside Crown Hotel. Aaron, in his stupid basketball jacket, Naomi, in her wool coat, his hand, extending the white plastic keycard, her hand, reaching to take it. This time, the sound was not a murmur. It was a collective, audible gasp. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face went white. At the head table, Naomi Price shot to her feet. The legs of her chair scraped against the marble floor. Emma, she shrieked. Stop! This is private. You can't do this. The MC, his face ashen, started to move toward the stage. Aaron, his face a mask of pure, white-hot panic, lunged from his chair. "Turn it off," he yelled. "Turn off the projector." He made it 2 steps before 2 very large men in black suits security for the venue, hired by Marcus just in case, stepped directly into his path. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to return to your seat," one of them said, his voice politely menacing. Naomi was still standing, her microphone off, her voice just a desperate yell. "This is slander. It's a lie." I turned to her. I didn't raise my voice. I just spoke into the microphone. "Sit down. Naomi, the part about you isn't even the interesting part." I turned back to the audience, and I clicked the remote. "I am not just here," I said, as the next slide loaded. "As a betrayed wife, I am here as a creditor and as a victim of fraud." The screen was now filled with text. It was the email, the one between Aaron and Naomi, the one discussing the transition. "I'm thankful," I said, my voice hard as ice, "for my best friend's excellent advice." I read from the screen. "You need to get her name off the joint account soon. She's too controlling. She doesn't understand the startup lifestyle." I clicked again. The next email. The one with the plan to sell Aaron's shares, our shares, and move the assets to Lumentide Creative. "You see," I said, "the plan wasn't just to leave me. The plan was to leave me holding the bag. The plan was to strip mine this company and leave the controlling wife the one whose signature is on the original business loans to clean up the bankruptcy." I looked at Jules. Her mouth was wide open. I looked at Clara Vaughn. Her face was no longer pale. It was dark red. Click, the final exhibit, the balance sheet, the wire transfers from BrightPath Wellness, an S-Corp, partially owned by me, to a private LLC. "And finally," I said, "I am thankful for Lumentide Creative, Naomi's company. A company that has been receiving, for the last 6 months, an exclusive consulting fee that is 40% above market rate for a contract that was never, not once, put before the board." I looked directly at Clara Vaughn. "A contract, I'm sure, that investors like you were never informed of. A clear, deliberate, and illegal breach of fiduciary duty." Clara stood up. I clicked one last time. The screen went black, replaced by 5 simple words in white text. "You're only powerless if you decide to stay quiet." I took a deep breath. I gripped the podium. This was the cue. "Today," I said, my voice ringing through the cavernous, silent room, "I am not staying quiet. Today, I am an operations manager, and this is my report. As of 30 seconds ago," I said, "my counterpetition for divorce, citing fraud and dissipation of assets, was filed with the Riverton County Court. An emergency petition to freeze all personal and corporate assets has been filed with it." At a table in the back, Marcus Ellery calmly closed his laptop. "As of 10 seconds ago," I continued, "this entire presentation, along with the complete 3-inch binder of evidence from my private investigator, was emailed to every single investor on the BrightPath roster, including you, Clara, and, of course, to the IRS and the bank that holds the fraudulent loan on my home." The room erupted. Phones, which had been on silent, were now buzzing on tables all over the room. 100 angry hornets. Investors were grabbing their devices, their faces turning from confusion to pure, unadulterated rage. Aaron finally broke past the security guards. He wasn't a visionary. He was just a man, and he was screaming. "You're ruining me," he howled, his face blotchy, tears of rage in his eyes. "You're ruining my life. This is my life." I looked at him. The controlling wife, the spreadsheet manager. I stepped away from the podium and held the microphone in my hand. "No, Aaron," I said, my voice calm. "I'm just playing the movie you directed. This is the part where the audience finally gets to see it." "Emma, please." Naomi was sobbing now, holding her stomach. "Don't, please. I'm pregnant." The room went silent again. My mother gasped. I looked at her, at my best friend, the woman who had advised my husband to destroy me. "That child," I said, my voice not unkind, but absolute. That child does not deserve an origin story built on public fraud and private theft. It deserves to know who its parents are and exactly what choices they made. This, I said, gesturing to the entire, imploding room, is the choice you made. She's right, a new voice said. Clara Vaughn was standing, her phone in her hand. She is absolutely right. As the primary investor in this company, I am announcing that all BrightPath financial activity is frozen, pending a full, independent, forensic investigation. As of now, Aaron Miller is suspended, indefinitely. Do not touch anything. She looked at Aaron with disgust so pure it was almost art. You're done. The staff, the employees like Jules, were just staring, some at Aaron, with dawning horror, some at me, with a strange, terrifying respect. Aaron just deflated. The rage, the fire, it was gone. He was an empty suit. He turned, his shoulders slumped, and walked, not ran, toward the fire exit. Naomi watched him go. Aaron, she cried. Aaron, wait. Say something. He didn't look back. He just pushed the bar on the door and was gone. Naomi stood there, alone, under the spotlight, her emerald dress and her terrible secret exposed. And then she, too, ran, crying, out the same door. The room was a mess of shock, fear, and quiet. Frantic phone calls. The MC was nowhere to be seen. Maddie, my sister, let out a sound that was half giggle, half sob. From the sheer, uncut tension, my parents were just staring at me, their faces a mask of, I couldn't tell, shock. And then, slowly, a reluctant, terrified pride. My father, a man of few words, just nodded at me. Once, my work was done. I walked off the stage. I found the AV tech and unplugged my laptop. I put it in my bag. I unclipped the microphone from my dress and handed it to a speechless stagehand. I zipped up my bag. I walked, not to my family, not to Marcus, but straight to the back of the venue, toward the same fire exit Aaron had used. I pushed the bar. The alarm didn't sound. Marcus had thought of that, too. The cool, damp, April night air hit my face. It tasted like freedom. The muffled, chaotic noise of the gala faded behind me. Emma! Maddie was running after me, her heels clicking on the pavement. Emma, my God, are you okay? I stopped. I looked up at the gray, polluted Riverton sky. I took a deep, clean breath. I am, I said, and I was. I am better than I have ever been. I looked down at the keys in my hand. Not the keys to the house in Maple Heights. The keys to my car. The one I had bought myself, in my own name, 2 weeks ago. The one parked in the garage across the street. A car Marcus had already insured was legally, ironclad, untouchably mine. At least, I said, a small, real smile finally touching my lips. He can't use me as a shield anymore. Maddie laughed. So what now? Are you coming home with us? I shook my head. Tomorrow. I'm hiring movers to get the rest of Aaron's stuff out of my house. Tonight, I just want to drive around this city for an hour and not have to explain myself to anyone. I opened the door to my new, clean, uncorrupted life, and I stepped out into the night. The story wasn't over, but this chapter, the one written by them, was finally, decisively, and publicly closed. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you're out there, I want to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below. Let's chat and share your own thoughts. Make sure you're subscribed to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.